struggled with because but you guys are, you know,
Yeah.
and I've looked into it just because I kind of felt a little bit confused and I wanted to understand more. Like Russian and like southwestern Alaska that's Yupik area, and you know that is like subarctic area too or whatever. And so I did look into Canada. I was like, so what does Canada? You know, I kind of just assumed like along the same level of Yupik area that's what it would be in Canada, but no, that's First Nation, so it's a different thing. And so in Canada, it's like the Inuit homelands are the way North Canada. A lot of their Inuit communities are kind of same level as North Slope. They're like up there, and it's kind of the same with Greenland too. Like it's just up there enough. Whereas like so there is like a little bit of a difference between an Inuit and a Yupik, or Inuit. It would even be Inuit because in Russia that's what they call themselves too. They are kind of more southern or whatever. But I also and so there's that like there's that like conflict. They're like, I'm not Inuit, I'm Yupik, or I'm a Yuk. I've just kind of have been trying to understand that as someone that isn't Yupik, and I just want to be like, just join our crowd.
Yeah.
Like, just come on. Like,
we need more.
Yeah. I was in Greenland, and we went through a small town that's about Kotzebue, it might be more like Bethel size, but it is at Kotzebue level. It's like just right above the Arctic Circle. And we were only there passing through for a couple hours before we went to the bigger city there. So we were in a cab at Sisimiut, Greenland. And we went in there. We were just like, yeah, because we were like, take us around, like show us around. Like we're just here for a little while. And we don't care how much it costs. We just want to see this place. And so he's like, yeah, no problem. And he's driving us around. And he doesn't really speak English very well, which I actually find very impressive with the Greenlandic, with the Kalaalleq, is that they speak their dialect. They all speak in schools and everything, like their governmental documents and everything. You have to have it in Kalaalleq. I think that's how you pronounce it, right? Kalaalleq, which is their dialect, which sounds very similar to Inupiaq. And, they could, with their elders around, they can kind of understand what they're saying. They can kind of communicate that. Mm-hmm. And then they have it in Danish because they're a Denmark territory. So all their governmental things are in there, and their school system's in that language, but also Danish. They start learning Danish, and now they're starting to learn like a lot more English as well. But so this cab driver didn't really speak very much English, but he spoke like a little bit of enough, to be able to communicate with us. And his name is Ungayuk. And he said he was a twin brother, and I had just learned, I was like, doesn't that have to do, like, you're the big brother, or you're the little brother, or whatever? Like, I just learned something that was relevant, and so I was able to understand his name or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I have a twin brother. One of the ladies I was with, that's from Imangak, but is now based in Bethel, she was like, she was really happy. She was just like, in our language, yuk means person. Like, she was just so happy, like, and then the cab driver just kind of giggled to himself. He was like, that means little person. Like, my mind was blown. Like, I just had a light bulb moment where I was like, Yupiks are, like, a little bit shorter than us. Like, that's, like, a known fact. And I was like, is that what it is? Like, it's an Inuk is a person, and a Yuk is, like, a shorter person. It just kind of blew my mind. What? And it's like, they're, like, fluent. They, and I can't speak for, like, our Inupiaq language and say that Yuk means short people in our thing, too. But I was like, like, that's a crazy coincidence,
Wow.
And so, I just do know that there is, like, kind of, like, that conflict and conversation of it's because of our Yupik relatives or whatever, but, because it is Russians, they're Yupik. And you can even tell, like, at ICC and stuff, like, their Utik looks kind of look the same. And, they would go back and forth and stuff like that. And so, well, then if we're trying to, like, not say Inuit because Yupiks aren't Inuit then, like, either, then we shouldn't, like, just try to generalize the two of us because there's clearly a difference.
Yeah.
Then we can start saying Inuit and Inuit. That's simple. You can't just be like, well, we can't say Inuit because Yupiks aren't. Like, just call Yupiks by what they want to be called and what they call themselves.
Yeah.
Because they didn't call themselves Eskimo either.
Yeah, there's no argument in that.
Yeah, and it's like, I read someone's blog who, like, she's just, like, an outsider that, like, got her PhD in linguistics or whatever, but, she makes a sentence that's along those lines of, like, Yupiks are Eskimos, not Inuit. And I'm just like, do you realize what you're even saying? Mm-hmm. Like, they're, like, when you're having those conversations of saying Inuit are not Eskimos, like, Yupik are not Eskimos either. I mean, like, we are, but, like, it's such a complex, like, argument, but it's like, call them by what they call themselves. Like, they're Yuks, they're Inuits, we're Inuks, we're Inuit. Like, how hard is it gonna be to just be like, okay, well, then we're not gonna generalize Inupiaq and Yupiks together, because we all know and we all, you know, agree that there are differences between Inupiaqs and Yupik. And it's just like, should we really just stop the conversation there? Like,
yeah.
Like,
exactly.
you know, that just goes into a whole nother conversation of call us by what we call ourselves.
Yeah. Is that so much to ask? You know what I mean? And that's the
Yeah.
biggest question I had with this episode is like, is it so much to ask for a non-native person or even a native person to call us how we want to be called?
Yeah.
This is how we identify ourselves, so why can't you just say that? It's not that difficult.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just like they're really, you know, it goes back to like the Canada thing. It's just like they're really uncomfortable with words they can't say. And right off the bat, they can't exactly say Inuit. You know, like, they can't say Inuit. Like, that's just not a regular vocab for them. But it's like, you can just take some time to learn it.
Yeah.
Inupiaq's a very, like, descriptive, like, loving language. Mm-hmm. And even, like, you know, French can be, you know, like, you just use your mouth differently, and it's just, like, there's, like, very hard things, I feel like.
In English.
Yeah. But it's like, but they're all comfortable with all that hard like, yeah, there was an elder telling me, she's from Nome, but she's King Island Inupiaq. She was like telling me that she grew up with her grandma, and she knew, or she was taught that, like, you know, speaking is so much more, you know. She's like, you have to learn how to observe people, you know. She's like, it's in the words that they say, it's in how they say it, and it's what their body is doing at the same time. And she's just like, there's so much more to communicating than we really, like, you know, in America, like, that we really, like, value and, like, really take into consideration, you know, even just now as, like, modern day Inupiaqs, like, we do have less of an awareness to how we're speaking to each other compared to how they used to a long time ago, you know. Just, like, so interesting.
It's always like storytelling, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Inupiaq was always, in the way that they spoke, was always in a form of storytelling.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's like poetic in that way, even if they're like telling you about something very, I don't know, mundane or something like that. Directions to do something. You know, but in that way, it's like it's the beginning, for middle, and
yeah. Oh, man. And for even just, like, going kui. Like,
right?
Like, it's just, like, even just saying quick. Like, it's like, you're just, I'm going to a place where you have to use a bathroom. Like, that's literally what that means.
Mm-hmm. And, like, it's a different way of saying that. Like, to say, I need to go to the bathroom, but, like, I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, like,
it's like
short to the point, but...
Yeah. Like, you're even saying bathroom before you say that it's you. Like, you know, like, even that kind of teaches, that teaches humility in a way where it's just, like, it's not like I. Like,
right.
It's not like you, we, or whatever.
Yeah. And I don't know if you listened to the LGBTQ, the Native community episode, but, the way that there's no pronouns in Inupiaq, which is so cool.
I like that too.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's so cool. I mean, I hate, like, not that I, like, hate learning the language right now, but, like, I just kind of, like, I'm, like, you know, I'm kind of bothered by how, like, every single, like, translation where they're just taught, you know, they're just saying what it is, who it is, or whatever, they have to be, like, her, him, it, like, her / him / it, or whatever, and I'm just like, why can't we just all have that same, like...
Yeah.
Whatever, but yeah, I talked about that with, like, the Eskimo dance that I composed last summer, because it's all about, like, you know, it's about a girl and everything, but it's also, like, really, when you say pivik saktok, you're not, like, saying, like, this girl is pretty, she's flaunting, whatever, like, you're saying this girl or boy or even a dog is flaunting or whatever, you know, that's literally what you're saying. There's no way, unless you added, you know, aknak to it somehow. I don't know how you would do that. But that's what you would do to be like, this girl is doing that or whatever. So it's just like, there was a guy that was like, are you going to make moves for me? Like, kind of just like, it was very obvious to everyone that it was a girl dance. But he's like, are there going to be boy dance? And I'm like, it is. Like, you know, boys can pivot. Like, like, you know, like, pivot's not a girl word. Like, So it's just like, it's so cool that, like, it's just like, I can't even imagine just like the fluidity they had back then when that's all they were speaking and saying. Like, there was just like, the way that their perspective was shaped had to have been so much more different. There is it's kind of just like with Barrow being translated, back to Itkavik, it's like the next generation, they're going to easily, they're going to be able to easily pick that up because that's going to be all they know. But like the older generation, they're like, it's Barrow, we know it as Barrow, it's Barrow, like they knew it was Itkavik, but like they also, they're like, it's Barrow or whatever. So that's where a lot of like resistance is that too, is the older generations where they're like, we're Eskimo, we're not offended by it, that's who we are, don't be ashamed of who you are or whatever. I think of it as like, I feel like I resisted arguing with my mom about it and like trying to change her mind because she's so grown already, she's already in her 50s, both my parents are, and you can't just like decide to like shift their identity again. They already had to alter it as a young kid because of their parents, because they were growing up in the world where it is like it wasn't called colonization back then. It was just like, you want better opportunities for your kids in your life. It is just like a really big shift for their generation. Kind of just them, I feel like the way I see it is like that they're kind of like blindly navigating that, transition before we did. Whereas, that was all we knew, is that we were already assimilated, we were already transitioned. So we're able to just kind of be like, well, what the like, like we're able to like resist it a little, where we're like, well, I didn't know any of the other part, but they did. They knew the disconnect. We didn't know. We've always been connected to another world. I was 8 years old on Yahoo Chat. Like, yeah. Even though I was just talking to people in Anchorage, but like, but like, it's true. It's just like they have a different thing, and their parents wanted them to shift their identities to be in the Western world, to be assimilated. Mm-hmm. And then like I just feel kind of sensitivity towards that feeling of being like, well, you need to shift your identity again, especially as them being so molded into who they are already. They didn't ask to be raised when they were raised, mm-hmm. and how they were raised, exactly. And like the societal climate of everything. They didn't ask for that. They didn't, and it's like, we can't just shame them for something they didn't ask for. Mm-hmm. But people do say it takes 4 generations to heal and fix things, so I think that's what our generation is.
Jackie's lived experiences, her exposure to different Inuit groups, and the process of learning her native language, these things have all influenced how she feels about the word Eskimo. She didn't come to this conclusion blindly, and she didn't come to this conclusion selfishly, and I think that's really admirable. Next, we hear from Muktoyuk. Melissa Muktoyuk Heflin's son inspired her to take a more active approach in language revitalization, and she now teaches an Inuit language course at UAA.
He's actually the reason why, though getting a master's degree is important to me, he's the reason why I have gone on this language journey with Miles and Cordelia and Denise, because the second half of kindergarten, he was mad because he goes to Aquarian Charter and their language focus is Spanish. Mm-hmm. And he came home one day and he was like, Mom, why am I learning Spanish? I'm not Spanish. I'm Inuit. He's like, well, when are they going to just have an Inuit class? Because that's what I am. And I was just like, oh my God, I just was like wanted to cry right there. And,
yeah, that's emotional.
So that he's the one who planted the seed, because my children don't use, as we're going to talk about Eskimo, they don't use that word. They really don't know what it means. They know what Inuit means, but they don't know what Eskimo means.
I asked Melissa how she feels about the word Eskimo and what some folks from the older generation think about it.
I think the switch happened when we started wanting more of our language, wanting to identify further as a people, and starting with our language. Yeah. Because they've been talking about language loss for a long time, but for whatever this generation right now, probably the 20 to 30-year-olds, we're just like, hey, we need to bring our language, keep it here and grow it further. And then we're not Eskimo, we're Inuit. That's where my grandparents that I was raised by Daisy and Louis Jack, they used the term Eskimo, and it didn't have like a strong, it was just like, yeah, I'm Eskimo. It doesn't mean any of these labels